Welcome everybody. Today I'm going to go over some basic Stonescript, and hopefully I'm going to try and address some of the common issues people encounter. So let's start off. So the first thing you need to consider is how you structure your code. Oftentimes I've seen people just do endless streams of if comments, and the problem with that is that every time the script runs, it will check all of it. So, they can, A might activate and D might activate, and that would overwrite anything before it. And that's particularly a problem when you've got ability activations, because if you're trying to activate a Bardiche or a hammer or something, it only needs to be interrupted for less than a frame. So you have to be careful about how you structure things. Often what you'll do is you'll go and you use your else, if-else commands. And the way, if you're unfamiliar with how those work, basically if A is true, it'll stop checking. So if A is true, that's what will activate. Anything under here will trigger, and nothing else will activate. That can also be a detriment as well. Like, for example, if you don't think about the order of things. Say, for example, I'm wanting B to activate. I have to think about everything before it. So if I want B to trigger, I need to consider if A is activating, then B will never activate, because B won't get the opportunity to do that. So there's a few things to consider about how you structure your code, but I would say it is important that you use if-elses, because then it means you can know what's activating and when. It gives you a lot more ability to isolate code and figure out how you want to go about things.
Okay then, let's go and start off with a very basic script. We're going to go and make a script for boiling mines. I normally separate my scripts first based on location. The reason I do that is because often you'll have specific foes to a location, and if you try and do all the different foes on every different location, it gets very complicated. You have to make exceptions all the time. I personally prefer to separate it first by location. I'm going to write if pickup dot distance is less than 12, let's say, then equip star. Else if pickup, else if foe distance is greater than 23, equip. You can, when you're doing indentation, it actually doesn't matter whether or not you do one space or two space, but you normally should do it consistent, more so just so you can keep an eye on like whether something's properly indented. So equip Altrisk and equip compound. Else if foe equals boss, equip Aether crossbow. I'm actually going to do a 0-star Aether crossbow, and the only reason I'm doing that is just so I can have time to sort of show you some of the tricks you can do. Otherwise, with my fancy weapons, I'll kill it too quickly. Else, we'll say equip repeating crossbow. Okay, so we'll run that and we'll see how that plays out. Very well, that seems to have worked so far. Let's try and improve our scripts, shall we? So let's say we want to activate the heavy hammer. what we're going to do is we're going to say if item dot get cooldown heavy hammer is, you always want to go less than or equal to 0. And the reason why is sometimes if you haven't activated an item yet, it'll actually be at -1 for whatever reason. So yeah, just go less than or equal to. And we also have to check if you can activate. Item dot can activate. This one's another one that people often get wrong, because what people will do is they'll actually write their item in there, but that actually isn't very helpful. In most cases, that actually is less helpful, because what happens is that'll only be true if I'm holding the hammer, whereas we want to be able to check it even if we're not holding the hammer. So simply leaving it as item.can activate works just fine, and in most cases it's actually preferable. So we'll want to do that. We'll say we also want to make sure that we're not going to interrupt our own attacks. See, another problem is people will often fail with the scripting, and it'll hold the weapon for like a frame, and then it'll be interrupted. So we also wanted to check to see what item we're holding. So if item dot right equals heavy hammer, I might have to do I'll do that on a different line. And item dot right dot state equals 2. That means that if it's currently doing an attack, if it's at state 3, it means it's finished its attack. If it's at state 4, then it's on cooldown. So we only want to have this holding the hammer. Well, actually, what we want to do is we want to go, instead of doing and, we got to go or. So it'll hold the hammer. If you're not using if your hammer's available, it'll use the hammer. Otherwise, if you're holding the hammer and you're currently in the middle of an attack, it'll hold the hammer. So the idea is you go equip heavy hammer. Do I have a 0-star version of it? Yeah, okay, we'll go with that one. Activate R, and then we'll go else equip Aether crossbow, and we'll see how that works. There we go. As you can see, it was able to activate the item without causing issue. The next thing we want to do is he's about to use his hammer, so we're going to go import UI / faux state tracker. There we go. And what this does, see, we'll pause it right there. This checks the state and the state and the time of the foes. As you can see, we just received 5 damage at state 33. It was previously at state 32, and it got to a time of state of 35 frames. So what we want to do for next time he does an attack, I'm going to go back to here. We're going to say if faux.state equals 32 and faux.time equals, let's say, 33, equip our Mind Stone. And then hopefully that'll mean that it'll dodge the next attack. And now what we're going to do is, instead of using Aether crossbow, we're going to say if faux.state equals 33, equip heavy hammer. There you go. And so you can see that he's now, because he's currently in state 33, we're now using the heavy hammer against him. As you can see, that time we were able to dodge the attack. There was no pop-up that said we received damage, and so we were obviously able to avoid that attack. But either way, let's leave now, and let's try out some talismans now. What we're going to do is we're going to put it at the start actually. Let's say if summon dot count equals 0, equip Aether. Now, again, you always want to check item dot can activate. Activate L, and that'll hopefully activate the Aether Talisman when we start the level. But let's say we also want to switch to Cinderwisp when we get into a fight. So we're going to go over to here, into the boss tab, and we're going to say if summon dot get ID, and we're going to say does not equal Cinderwisp. We're going to say equip L fire talisman, and if item dot can activate L. And one final thing I'm going to do is, because you notice at the very start of the combat we weren't actually we were standing there with our crossbow even though we weren't attacking. So we're going to say if AI dot paused equip compound. Oops. So let's see how that all plays out now. As you can see, it's summoned the Aether Wisp, the Void Weaver, I mean, and we'll see whether or not it switches to Cinderwisp later on. Okay, it is currently holding the thing, but it has not tried to activate it yet because item.activate is disabled. That seems to have worked flawlessly actually, so hopefully that'll cover some of the basics. Perhaps next time I'll get into functions and we'll see what we can do with that. But for now, I think that mostly covers the basics of getting through functions and various other things.